Hello, everyone. Welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host, Liam, aka Hembar, and today I have another weekly update for you. This is Liam's Leapings number 134, just where I tell you what I've been up to this week. Almost always just centered around reading, really. And it's been a good week for reading, actually. Shore things as is normal. I finished She is the Darkness by Glenn Cook, which is book 2 in the Glittering Stone Black Company series. So that was I can't do that. The eighth Black Company book I've read. So I really enjoyed the first three Black Company books, and I decently enjoyed the three I read after that. So, but I got a early copy of Why Is Weeping, which is the upcoming Black Company book. And so I was like, I should probably read Glittering Stone since I haven't read those yet. So um, I finished She is the Darkness, and I actually have made decent progress as well into Water Sleeps, which is the sequel. And once I finish Water Sleeps, there's one more book in Glittering Stone, and that's Soldiers Live, I think. So, anyways, really enjoying them. They're all very different from each other. It's kind of interesting. The first book is uh, they kind of mix up the narrator as well, but that's kind of a spoiler. But so I won't really say what's going on there. But it Cook keeps it interesting, and each of these three books so far hasn't really read like the other ones. Any of the other three, right? They haven't read like each other, so all that much. Though in other ways they are rather similar. This week I also finished The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. I really enjoyed this one, actually. I don't know. I just got in the mood for like a 19th century work and a historical adventure. It sounded nice, and Dumas is good. I've read very little Dumas, even though I very much enjoy The Count of Monte Cristo. Um, but it's been man, like 6 years I think now since I've read The Count of Monte Cristo, which is ridiculous and so on. But so and I never read it in English actually. I read it for French class, so um, maybe I'll read it in English someday. Um, but yeah, very much enjoyed that. I think it's funny that immediately there's like four musketeers actually. Well, one of them's not really a musketeer, I guess, but essentially there's these four guys that are essentially musketeers. So, um, and Milady Winter was a really big surprise. So very interesting. Also, a lot more like romantic and kind of like it's kind of comedic actually. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I've probably seen some like Three Musketeers adaptation like forever ago when I was really young, and I don't remember anything about it really. So uh, yeah, it was a surprise, very enjoyable surprise. Not sure I have much to say on it, but very enjoyable nonetheless. Another book I finished that I'm not sure I have a lot to say on actually is Titus Grown by Mervyn Peake. I'm glad I read it. It is very, I want to say whimsical almost, but it's very bizarre, kind of strange in some ways. So it feels very gothic in a lot of ways. It doesn't really feel like um, other fantasy from the time. But it came out in the 40s, and there wasn't really much fantasy being released at the time. You had like your pulp fantasy, but that was more so in the 30s and the 20s, and maybe a little bit in the 40s, right? But not a ton. Right? 40s and 50s are heavily dominated by science fiction, and then early 60s still, and then you get the popularity of something like Lord of the Rings, and then Valentine comes out with their adult fantasy collection, and then that's when fantasy starts taking off. In fact, you can tell it hasn't quite kicked off in the early 60s when you read Michael Moorcock's Aspects of Fantasy, where he talks about this and he says that fantasy is like really not a popular genre at all, and but he's like defending it as a genre. It's interesting. So it was a young Moorcock. In fact, it's an earlier essay than his epic Pooh. Very young Moorcock. I think he's younger than I am now. So um, anyways, so Titus Grown, I did enjoy it. Like I said, it's some good gothic fiction. It is kind of slow going, in a lot of ways. It's really not like it definitely has a plot, right? It's just a slow moving plot in a sense. Um, but I think the vibes of it, in a sense, the description of it, the use of language in it, I think works rather well. Um, I often see him compared to someone like Tolkien because he's writing around a similar time to Tolkien, This would have came out in between The Hobbit's release and The Fellowship of the Rings release, but it's very different. This is really nothing like Tolkien at all, and so comparing them seems a little ridiculous actually, and kind of pointless. So, of course, Titus Rowan actually, interestingly, is not really the main character, really at all. He's born at the beginning of the book, so he's just a child. So he's not really the main character at all. He's just a child in the book. So really, the main character is Steerpike, and he is an interesting character as a kitchen boy essentially, and he has a rise to power in this interesting setting of Gorman Gas, and definitely one of these books that is uh, the the setting is character in of itself. Very much, and that's how the description, the opening descriptions of Gorman Gas just work very well. Actually, I had read the opening descriptions of Gorman Gas or of Titus Grown, with Gorman Gas being openly described at the start, um, a couple years ago. I think I mentioned this last week in my weekly update, and I liked it so much. I liked those opening few pages that it inspired one of my short stories, Monument Built Mockingly, which I had published in Triapa. I don't remember which issues, a couple of them though. And so you can read it for free. If someone wants to read it, just, I don't know, message me. Maybe I'll send it to you. But um, anyways, uh, yeah. So I enjoyed Titus Grown. And apparently I had more to say than I haven't quite figured out my notes for my review. Is mostly what I mean when I said I don't have a lot to say, because I'm not sure what to say about it so much. I don't feel like I have as much to say as I would like. But that's okay, I guess. So maybe I'll figure it out before my review will probably come out in a couple months anyways. So anyhow, the last book I finished was The Castle in the Attic, which I read digitally. I do have a physical copy of this, just not here, actually. It's not in my house, it's not in the state that I live in. It would be with my old books that are in storage in half the country away. But I read this actually because I told my brother Shannon that I would, and he wants to do a video about me, so he could put a book on his shelf from me. And so I told him that one, and it was a weird suggestion for me in some ways, but I remember it pretty much being like one of the first books to really kick off my enjoyment of reading novels and stuff. Right, it's the earliest book I can remember reading that has a name to it, that is a chapter book, that is a novel, right? I had read stuff like, series. What's that one series? Horrible Henry or Horrible Harry or something? Horrible Harry, I think. And I don't remember any of those books particularly. They're rather short for other young audience. And I remember reading a good amount of um, Magic Treehouse as well, but I don't remember any of those books specifically. I'm sure if I went and looked at a list, I could remember, right? But none in particular stick out in my mind. Though I did enjoy them. Those are a little younger as well than this, I would say. Magic Treehouse, like my 6-year-old can read those now. But anyways, this I read when I was 9. It was The Castle in the Attic by Elizabeth Winthrop, and I read it when I was 9 in 4th grade. And again, it's like the first novel I remember pretty much, like strictly. And I didn't remember a ton about it, but there wasn't a ton to it actually. So about a boy named William who does gymnastics, and he has a nanny essentially that lives with him, and she's going to move, and so he is dealing with that essentially, this loss of this nanny, that her upcoming departure. And there's a castle in the attic, decently common trope in children's books where it's a magical castle. There's a knight in the castle, and there's a epic quest to be had. It is very very fun, right? And I could see how one, it would lead me to my like of help me along to my like of fantasy so much, but also to things like medieval stuff, right? And knights. And I mean, I remember at the time actually that I had probably been playing for years already with this. We had these like black knights, little toys, action figure things. They hardly moved. I think some of their arms moved, but and also that when I was in 4th grade when I read this, so when I was 9 years old, was we went on a family vacation, and we had saved up a bunch of money we had gotten from chores, which I hardly ever got money for chores, but just for this vacation, essentially, that's um, my parents helped us do that so we could spend said money on toys or whatever souvenirs we wanted on vacation. And I remember getting a bunch of these little action figures, but they weren't really action figures. They're kind of like the stuff I have at the top of my bookshelf now, which I I'm not gonna grab right now, but uh, they're more like figurines, right? And they were knights. I had a wizard, I guess, too, but there was like knights. There was like a guy in a helmet with like a war pick. There's a guy with a full helm, and he had a battle axe. Um, just cool stuff. I have them again. I think they're in storage, half the country away. Actually, which is unfortunate. I would love to put them on my shelf. And I don't remember who made them. I could probably try a little harder to find out and see if I could get some. Again, they're really cool, but I remember getting those around the same time, and so it makes sense then that I would want to read something like This Castle in the Attic because I had those figurines that are very much like the Silver Knight, Sir Simon, is in this attic, this castle. Um, Very fun, very fun. I told my brother after I finished it out that I had good taste even when I was younger. I really enjoyed it, and it was what's really well. You know what? I'll talk more about it on my brother's channel, and I'll link that when that goes out and whatever. So, anyways, those are the books I finished. I talked too much about them, so let me talk about the books I read. I didn't actually really continue any more in Shadow of the Seventh Moon. I do want to. I just have been focused. This is one of my physical reads. I don't read all these books physically, and so another one that I started reading physically. That's one of the reasons that I've been delayed on reading Shadow of the Seventh Moon. Is Old Moon, different moon this time. Issue 7, so Shadow of the Seventh Moon. And it's in the shadow of Old Moon, issue 7. So I actually just had a chat come out with two of the editors from Old Moon, Julian and Graham. Very nice to come on the channel and talk about Old Moon. There is a crowdfunding campaign going on for Old Moon right now on BackerKit. This is probably my favorite magazine. It's right up there with New Edge, but I think maybe this would probably edge out over New Edge a little bit. Unintended puns going on, but very fun, and I'm really close to finishing this one. Actually, in fact, I probably only have the review at the back left. I think, yeah. So there's a review of E.R. Edison's War More Boris, which is not one I've read. Actually, it's one I've had on the shelf for a few years. It's one I think I will really enjoy reading. It's kind of one like Titus Grown, actually, where it's one I've been meaning to get to for a number of years. So hopefully I'll do that soon. I'm going to read this review probably sometime here upcoming days. I'll finish out issue 7, and I'll probably read issue 8. So we'll see. And then I also have continued my reading of The Perils of Perseus and Sigismunda, a Northern Saga by Miguel de Cervantes. I'm still not really that far into it. It's not huge, right? But it's not little either. It's like 350 pages probably. But there are a good amount of words on each page. Also, that's kind of helped along with that. There's a good amount of footnotes. You can see all the footnotes down here. I'm enjoying it. It's not like amazing. I mean, it is a rather early novel, early modern, right? And so um, it is enjoyable. It definitely has some good stuff in here. There's one quote in here that I thought was like really good, and I was like, I'm gonna like name a short story of this or something like that. Calamities have companions, and wherever they happen, they are always grave. And then calamities cease when the life of the sufferer ends. All right, so calamities have companions, which is to say that calamities come in pairs or more. Right, essentially, you're not just gonna have one. Essentially, what it's getting at. So, I liked the alliteration of it as well. So, I also am about. What is interesting though that the Northern Saga part of it, I got tipped off to it by a guy, I believe. Oh my goodness, what's his name? Some professor or doctor or something. Maybe not a professor. His book came out today. He had a book that came out today when I'm recording this. I'm recording this a few days early, and I want to read this book. It's a nonfiction book, but I don't have it. Silence of the Gods. I believe it was him I saw recommend online. Francis Young recommend this because he studies stuff like Lithuania, right? And Lithuania was one of the last places to convert Christianity in Europe. Essentially, the last place, really. Really late, actually, compared to most of Europe. And The Silence of the Gods sounds pretty cool because it's about that. The subtitle is The Untold History of Europe's Last Pagan Peoples. And I always found Lithuania to be a rather fascinating country. But what's interesting is during Cervantes' lifetime, and this came out posthumously, he died shortly after finishing this, that the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was the biggest and generally considered the most powerful country in Europe at the time that he was writing this. So that's kind of how that came up. Anyways, I could go on, and I talk too long. I'm about halfway through Darkwell. I'm looking up to finish Douglas Niles' first trilogy for the Forgotten Realms. There is a follow-up trilogy actually, called the Druid Home trilogy, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what the names of those books are. I have them. This is a really pristine copy, I might add, of Darkwell, original copy as well. It looks great. But enjoying that. This will be my second Forgotten Realms read in June. And the first one, actually, I have my review out early because it's an upcoming release in July, and that just came out yesterday, the day before this came out. And that'll be a finished trilogy. And then after that, I'll try to finish two other trilogies: the Sellswords trilogy by R.A. Salvatore, and which I only have one more book left, the Road of the Patriarch. There it is, yeah, I think. And then the last book in Starlight and Shadows, which is Windwalker, I think, by Elaine Cunningham. I'm sure the Cunningham one's going to be much better. In fact, I just got a comment on my last R.A. Salvatore review on the channel, who the person said all my opinions are bad or something like that, which is fair. I really don't like Salvatore, really at all. So I know there's a lot of people out there who really passionately like Salvatore, and that's fine. You can like bad books. That's okay, guys. I don't like them. Which is funny because I read a lot of Forgotten Realms stuff, which is really not high literature at all. I try to really not be like elitist or anything like that. I like reading pulpy stuff. I like taking any book really that deserves it seriously. I mean, I do read a lot. I mean, I have a humanities major. I have school for literature and language, mind. But I just try to take everything seriously. Essentially, I think it deserves it. Maybe not everything, but most everything, right? I mean, the fact that I've all those Dungeons and Dragons novels seriously. So, I think that might be it. Let me double check. Oh no, I did start The Dagger and Vichy, another arc I got. This is Alistair Reynolds' upcoming. It's a novella. It's actually rather short, of course, and I'm enjoying it. It is a good mix of genre again, or well, it remains to be seen because I think Reynolds always seems to be very sci-fi, even when he's mixing genres. Like a version mixes gothic and it mixes like Lovecraftian type of stuff, but it's still very sci-fi underneath, right? I think The Dagger and Vichy will probably be like that too, but right now it's kind of reading like an early modern romance with some sci-fi elements. Seemingly takes place in the future, but again, reads like an early modern romance. Kind of besides the fact that there's like what certain types of pistols. Oh, I can't even remember what they are. Like sci-fi pistols, not just like a oh my gosh, what's not like a wheel lock pistol or anything. Okay, I think that's it. Yes. Oh, I did well for school this week. Actually, I am reading Egil's Saga, also in the Saga of Icelanders. I actually had a unique copy of it, just like by itself rather, and I read for school a few years ago, where I read Ravenkel's Saga and Egil's Saga for school, and now I'm reading much more in this class. That was just a broadly medieval literature class, and this is Norse myths and sagas. So, hence this volume now. So, Egil's Saga is one of the better sagas. It is very entertaining, very good. The one book I did get, which I probably shouldn't buy, I'm broke. I feel absolutely broke. I felt really dumb after I bought this. But it sounded really cool, and I got scared to go out of print. I think the author is dead. Okay, that's one of the reasons. A.J. Campbell, when you look up A.J. Campbell, it comes up with some woman who writes thrillers, I think, or something like that. Supposedly, this is supposed to be the first book in a series, potentially. But I don't know exactly. Yeah, the Tyrfing Saga Volume 1. Okay. Forging the Blade. It's pretty much Arthurian stuff, but actually pre-Arthurian because it's Arthuriana put into a historical Goth setting. So the Goths, right? In AD 348, the Goths are living between a Roman-controlled Danube and the Black Sea. In their midst are three individuals who will forever live in European literature. Thulia, the bad girl, yet the proclaimer knows who she will become. Fritigern, the fisher, destined to save his people from the shadow of death. Marions, the mystic. Marions is just like a word for like priest, kind of in Gothic. Walking from Asia to Gotia, to complete a transmigration. Anyways, this will be interesting. I'm really looking forward to this. I hope it feels complete enough. especially at the beginning, it says like um, a pre-Arthurian novel in 5 cantos, and I wonder if the novel is divided into 5 cantos or if this is one of them and there's 4 others planned that just didn't come out. Because I believe this came out in 2012 and nothing since. And like I said, I believe the author has passed away. If you look at the picture in the back, which again, this is over a decade old now, um, he's rather aged looking fellow. Also a really badass looking fellow. I think he's more known for this other book I mentioned, The Demon's Bolt. So again, really looking forward to reading this. I'm not sure when I'll get to it. It's not short. It's not super long. Um, I'm just a very busy person. Oh, I came out with my latest lecture on my Alfred Chomley project channel. If anyone's interested in that, I really love putting those out. They're really not popular at all. I think my most viewed video on that channel has gotten like 70 views or something. I mean, it does feel like something I could put on a resume, but it is a very difficult project. And one thing I do really like is I like sticking to my projects, right? I mean, like when I first started this YouTube channel, I thought maybe I'll just do it for a few months, and then here we are, almost 4 years later, and I just I feel like I can do it. I'm just gonna do it, right? And so even though it's really difficult to have a translation and a lecture for that translation go up every month, um, just I don't just for fun, pretty much, right? It's not for class. I'm not getting paid for it or anything like that. That's a lot of work, but I think I can do it, and I've managed so far. I'm halfway through the year, so wish me luck for the rest of the year. Um, anyways, I'm talking too long. I've edited my stories slightly, but there's the last 2 I wrote, and I need to probably go back and edit them more. Before I send them. Well, one of them is for the Old Moon Arthurian Call. I'm really proud of that one, but I don't know. I don't know how readable it is. I worry. I can read it pretty well, but I also wrote it, and I spent way too many hours editing it already. So I don't know. Good stuff. Hopefully, I get a promotion at work. Be thinking of me. I've prayed a lot for that. So we'll see. Anyways, and I hope you've had a good week. Midsummer was, I guess, 2 days before this comes out. So happy midsummer solstice. Since it's the start of summer these days. Summer used to start in May, early May, which is why it's called midsummer. So anyways, leave from these I say I am done talking now. Sorry.